If Upanishadic teachings are so important and it becomes the core or forms the core aspect of the Indian philosophy, then it would be a good question to ask, who has written the Upanishads? So definitely it is not by one author, and also not always in the priestly class. So how the beginnings of Upanishads, or which were the hymns which were composed by the rishis, the sages, people who sat in meditation, thought about the fundamental questions of life, they had the flash of the revelation or the enlightenment about things. So they have composed the hymns, what they understood, they began to give in, say or explain to their disciples and pupils around the teacher in oral tradition or in oral mouth to mouth, that is the oral tradition. For a long time it went on. So they were poets, that means these people who composed the Upanishad teaching, they were poets prone to flashes of spiritual wisdom, and their aim was to guide a few pupils to the point of liberation. So the main idea of the teacher in imparting knowledge which he had gained from his meditation was to help the pupil to lead them to liberation, which they themselves had attained. According to some scholars, the main figure in the Upanishad is Yajnavalkya, the great sage who propounded the doctrine of Neti Neti, the view that truth can be found only through the negation of all thoughts about it. So Neti Neti means not this, not that. So how do you define God? That is Neti Neti, not this, not that. So only through that denial, not us, what we see in the phenomenal world, we see so many things. Then we begin to compare. God is like this. But then if you ask for them, the Yajnavalkya would say, Neti Neti, not this, not that. So only by that denying that something more pure, perfect and indivisible, we come to that. So that is one of the main figure in the Upanishad which we come is Yajnavalkya, the great sage who propounded the doctrine of Neti Neti, the view that truth can be found only through the negation of all thoughts about it. Other important Upanishadic sages are Udalaka, Aruni, Shvetaketu, Santiliya, Aitreya, Pippalada, Sarath Kumara. Many earlier Vedic teachers like Manu, Brihaspati, and Ayasya and Narada are also found in the Upanishads. So many names come across of the great teachers in the Upanishadic teaching, or what they have imparted, the knowledge. And there are quite a few, or quite many of them. It's to show that it is not the work of one person. So many of them, the names, main ones we have said about the Yajnavalkya. Then we have other important Upanishadic sages are Udalaka, Aruni, Shvetaketu, Santiliya, Aitreya, Pippalada, Sanat Kumara. Many earlier teachers like Manu, Brihaspati, Ayasya and Narada. So many, still the list is bigger. So they have, or they were poets, men who had that flash of that idea, revelation, which they composed into a hymn. Also later on, these hymns were collected and put into 4 Vedas, the Chatur Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda. So we have the 4 Vedas, and each Veda has got 4 parts, and then they are the Samhitas, then the Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and Upanishad. What we are dealing now with the important aspect of the Upanishadic teaching. Where did they come from? Who are the authors? When were they composed? What is the importance of this Upanishadic teaching in Indian philosophy? Such things. The human being is the central mystery of the universe, holding the key to all other mysteries. Indeed, human beings are our own greatest enigma. As the famous physicist Niels Bohr once said, we are both spectators and actors in the great drama of existence. So existence is an enigma, a question mark, very difficult to grasp and understand. And therefore once Niels Bohr, the great famous physicist, he said, we are both spectators and actors in the great drama of existence. Hence, the importance of developing what is known as the science of human possibilities. Hence, the importance of developing what is known as the science of human possibilities. So, we are the spectators and we are the actors. Therefore, we are going to develop what is known as science of human possibilities. It was such a science that India sought and found in the Upanishads in an attempt to unravel the mysteries of human beings. So human beings become the central aspect of the Upanishads. So what it studies, what it tells about it means who has to seek after the moksha, liberation? Human beings. For whom religion exists? For human beings. The entire universe and world for human beings. So there is that man becomes the central aspect. At the same time, he becomes very, very difficult to understand. Therefore, we become the very problem regarding the existence. At the same time, it is about us. Most of the questions are raised. So, what is man? What is fundamental to him? What happens to him? Why? And so many things related to him. So everything in relation to human existence is the story or the teaching what we find in the Upanishads. So what ways, means are chalked out so that man can reach liberation. So that seems to be the ultimate goal of every human person. Artha, Kama, Karma, Moksha. So everything really was getting culminated in the aspect of liberation. Artha and Kama to be used in such a way to come to Dharma, and Dharma leads you to the Moksha. Artha, Kama, Karma, Moksha, the four ends of human existence or life. So what are the things that is making his life more meaningful is that. So this science of understanding human person, that was the search. It was such a science that India sought and found in the Upanishads in an attempt to unravel the mystery of human beings. So human being still remains a mystery to grasp, to understand. Very, very difficult. Then we have the science of the self. In the modern age, that self has gained so much of importance. Psychology, or dealing with the very response of man or the reaction of man, a big amount of studies are going on still, and so much is already taken or understood, but still a big element of it is still under research. So that field is very vast, very difficult to grasp the entire way how the human beings behave. Very, very difficult. From each person to the other person, it is different. And what makes a difference? Why it is so? The things, the studies still going on. So science of self. Today we see a growing urge in everyone to realize the true self. It's very important to realize what is me, what is that self. We are keenly feeling the need to make our knowledge flower into wisdom. A strange yearning to know about the infinite and the eternal disturbs us. It is against this background of modern thought and aspirations that the contributions of the Upanishads to man, to the human cultural legacy, become significant. So, how does Upanishadic teaching become very significant? Because we are searching for the understanding of self, human self. What are its important elements concerning that? So already we can see Upanishad has done a study on that, the teaching. Now our science, our psychology is being developed or it's improving every year. And at the same time, there are complex cases, the ways, the phenomena which we see. So human existence itself has become an enigma, a question mark, and we are not able to make it in a uniform way. So each individual is different. So to his or her reaction also or response also is different. Therefore, how to account for all that? So therefore, there is a growing interest in understanding the self, what is happening or how to really get to know the person. So today we see the growing urge in everyone to realize the true self. Always there is a tendency in us to mask the true self. So project something else, what you wish to be, what you want to be, but in reality you are not that. So there is a constant fight is going on within, or a tug of war between the real you and the magnified or the virtual one, or what you want to be, or the projected view of yours and actually what you are. So if there is no correspondence between these two, then there is going to be constant problem of conflict, then the personality or divided personality or different kind of behavior, all things can be grasped from the fact that what is happening for human being. So modern science is very much advanced in that level. But you look at the Upanishadic teaching, they have already done it. So there was already deeper studies done with regard to know yourself, know thyself. That is the biggest of wisdom or the best wisdom a person can have. To know oneself. That is fully. So that's a great interest which is being created here. We are keenly feeling the need to make our knowledge flower into wisdom. A strange yearning to know about the infinite and the eternal disturbs us. It is against this background of modern thought and aspirations that the contributions of Upanishad to the Indian cultural legacy become very significant. How do they become significant? The legacy that is left behind by the Upanishadic teaching. The purpose of the Vedas was to ensure the true welfare of all beings, worldly as well as spiritually. Before such synthesis could be achieved, there was a need to penetrate the innermost worlds to its depth. This is what the Upanishad did with the precision and gave us the science of self, which helps man leave behind the body, the senses, the ego, and all other non-self elements, which are perishing. The Upanishads tell us the great saga of this discovery of divine in the heart of man. So what is the Upanishadic teaching? Divine in the heart of man. That is the nearness of the divinity in human person. That becomes a central thought of the Upanishad. So it is about the science of the self. So to know oneself is the highest of wisdom. Now how to know? So for that only various other means are proposed. And whole chapters of the Vedas or the Upanishadic teaching is dealing with that, the behavior of human persons. Now, as I said, it's very difficult to understand every person. Why a person does this and this and not anything else? Or what is this way of doing and can't he change? So many questions are there which growing interest in the awareness of self. What is this self? How we'll be able to do something with regard to the self. So science of self tells us that this study has been already done in the Upanishadic teaching. The purpose of Vedas was to ensure a true welfare of all beings. That is Natmana Dharma. The purpose of the Vedas was to ensure a true welfare of all beings, worldly as well as spiritually. Before such synthesis could be achieved, there was a need to penetrate the innermost worlds to its depth. This is what the Upanishad did with precision and gave us the science of the self, which helps man leave behind the body, the senses, the ego, and all other non-self elements which are perishable. The Upanishads tell us the great saga of this discovery of the divine in the heart of man. So what Upanishad will teach us is that of the divine which is dwelling in the heart of man, and that makes the difference between human persons and that of the brute life or the animal kingdom. So it gives about the science of self, and knowing oneself, that is going to be the highest of wisdom. How to know, that's all a different explanations are given there with regard to how do I know that what I know is true, the verification theory, and so many other things are dealing with that. But the primary element is that the theory of self, or the learning about self. And here also we have certain occasions wherein we do make a celebration, but then that is the real understanding is of that the human persons, they become the very center, the importance of knowing oneself, how to understand. So there is the divine in the heart of man, the divine aspect, the divine element that is in the heart of man. Now we go to another aspect of the Upanishadic teaching, the inside story of the Upanishadic teaching. Very early in the development of Indian civilization, the man became aware of a strange new field of human experience. Experience the within of nature as revealed in man, and in his consciousness and his ego. It gathered volume and power as years rolled on until in the Upanishads it became a belief inspiring in a systematic, objective and scientific pursuit of truth in the depth of experience. It covers to us, or it conveys to us, an impression of the tremendous fascination that this new field of inquiry held for the contemporary mind. The true inside story is that there was already, with the scriptures or the Vedas, already there was a study done with regard to the human soul, that is after death what happens, or should they really arrive at or learn for wisdom or something else they have to do. These Indian thinkers were not satisfied with their intellectual speculations. They discovered that the universe remained a mystery and that the universe only deepened with the advance of such knowledge. And one of the important components of the deepening the mystery is the mystery of man himself. The Upanishads became aware of this truth, which modern science now emphasizes. So that is something which we find. The modern science is far advanced with a lot of equipments and gadgets and all that. You are able to, let's say, 90% of the diagnosis with the help of a machine, which was not existing at that time. So they had only eye-to-eye contact, or they may have a checking system or the pulse system in order to ascertain whether a human person is having strength or not.